Welcome to Trending in Education. Mike Palmer here. Very excited to be joined by Dr. Phil Hickman, also known as Dr. Phil. He's the CEO and founder of Plabook. He's also well known within e-learning circles. He's an interesting follow. I'm really happy to welcome you to the show. Welcome to the show, Phil.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it's an honor being on here. So I appreciate the invite.
Absolutely. And, you have an interesting background. We always like to get to know our guests a little better right at the top. Can you catch us up on your origin story, how you got to this point in your professional life?
Yeah, just real quick. I have 5 graduate degrees and a doctorate. I'm actually finishing up one more MBA, but in psychology and education, and statistics, those kind of things, and obviously business and tech. I did everything in the field of education. So I was a teacher, a school psychologist, assistant principal, principal. I was a superintendent in some of the largest school districts in the nation, 300 schools, 210,000 students.
Wow.
Then I'm superintendent in some of the most rural districts in Mississippi.
Hmm.
And then I was a national ambassador for the United States Department of Education. And then I did some consulting work, working with Amazon, Apple, and then worked for years with Oracle. And then I realized, this technology background and a strong education background, I really wanted to figure out how could we better, impact the world and impact education because
Hmm.
it's a large dinosaur. It's so hard to
Yeah.
shift thinking in education and shift models. But the problem is, like, we actually have no choice. And I always tell people, I think it's a area of national security.
Yeah.
75% of children in the United States read below grade level.
Right.
And that's regardless of socioeconomical status, anything. And then we
Yeah.
know at least to a high dropout rates, 73% of crime in the United States is created by high school dropouts.
Hmm.
82% of prison inmates have a reading impairment that's just never been corrected. So
Yeah.
it's to me, it was a serious enough thing to approach. And real quick, just the reason why I did it with our tech company is that the only way that we assess reading right now with technology is we quietly have a child read a paragraph and then answer multiple choice questions.
Right.
That's only reading comprehension. It has nothing to do with basic reading,
Hmm.
with phonics and phonemic awareness and all those kind of things.
Right.
So
Right.
we developed the first technology that uses, artificial intelligence, natural language processing, and speech recognition. So we can hear the child read. Not only can we hear them, just read and diagnose what they're reading, we hear all the way down to the phonemic level. So if a
Hmm.
child read the word bat, we hear b, at, or
Yeah.
the lack thereof. And we have no third party tools, 100% our technology. And that's why our speech engine does so well because Apple and Amazon, those folks, they don't really use children's voice data set because a
Mm.
child's voice changes every time. It squeaks, it squeals,
Yeah.
have front teeth one minute, the next minute they don't have front teeth. So
Right.
front
Right.
fog, and it messes up what. And so we're able to have different layers of recognition
Yeah.
to make sure that we follow the maturation of a child.
Yeah, that's great, and that's in Playbook, which you then founded. You got a pretty impressive range of experiences prior to founding an EdTech company, but now you've founded Playbook, which is helping kids learn how to read. There's also some math stuff baked into that, and it's leveraging all that background, all that experience you were talking about, and then, being out on your own, leading something. What's that been like? Can you tell the story of Playbook a little bit more?
Yeah, it was difficult because when I started it, and really we're talking, let's say the ideas 2020, speech recognition was not where it was at.
Right.
And still speech recognition is kind of spotty. We had to figure out a better way to do it. We couldn't use other people's speech engine because of that. So
Right.
no one believed that we can do it, right?
Mhm.
Especially a guy coming from education and dabbled in obviously some pretty large technology companies, but still didn't have the respect. And so I learned how to code and started hacking away. I met 2 other guys and we said, "Look, we can develop our own speech engine." And, everybody said, "It's gonna take you, millions of years. You cannot even get access to a data set." But because of my relationships in schools and those things, we were able to train our models. And like I said, we were able to develop an innovative way and patent an innovative way to be able to hear all the way down to the phonemic level, to have a
Yeah.
language model, like all those things to make it, pretty doggone sure accurate. And then we have another feature within our platform where a teacher can also approve or not approve it, which just adds to they become a natural data scientist, and it
Mhm.
Yeah, and so we start to really use AI in that aspect to really personalize learning for children. So
Yeah.
so it was hard. So the origin story of it was I had to go out and do a lot of pitch competitions,
Mhm.
and I won pitch competition after pitch competition as a pitch competition,
Yeah.
and that's where I started out with my first seed money.
And
Uh,
those pitch competitions, when you're going in there, is it like a sports kind of vibe? But do you have your headphones on? Are you thinking like walk up music? I need to be in the zone. Like how? Because you basically
hey,
got to be bringing your A game when you're
hey,
doing your
gang,
pitch,
they
right?
put you on a stage with a room full of people.
Yeah.
And you see, a person get up and a person and pitch, and you see some great ideas.
Yeah.
And so it can be intimidating, and then you see some people up there, you're like, "Why are they here?"
Right.
But it's not like a rap competition, but literally, it's a competition.
Yeah.
We're going for, 100,000, $200,000 here,
Right.
300,000 here.
Yeah.
I actually won Google, even though, our speech engine is different from theirs.
Hmm.
That's 150,000 with Google. So we had a lot of
Yeah.
people, and it's actually non-diluted. So it's not
Right.
money you have to pay back. So it's an intense competition.
I imagine it's a combination of the pitch, but also how you pitch, right? So like it's not
It's a formula.
just the
It
idea, but there is also the element of communication and almost like winning a rhetoric contest almost, you know?
and there's hidden rules. There's hidden
Yeah. Yeah,
so
yeah.
imagine just I want you to imagine. Imagine me going to a pitch competition, a tech pitch competition as a superintendent. I have
Mm,
a full suit and tie,
yeah.
breasted suit.
You got multiple pieces. You
They're
got
looking
like
at me
yeah.
like, "Who is this guy?" Because that's not the culture of tech,
Right.
right? It's
Right.
T-shirt, a hoodie,
Yeah.
and that's the first and only pitch I lost, and it was more of a delayed. I came back and won that pitch a year later, but what that did was that opened me up to coaching,
Yeah.
and they gave me a lot of free coaching. I had a business coach, I had a pitch coach,
Yeah.
understood how to it's just a PowerPoint deck, like, literally everyone's
Mhm.
pitching from just a pitch deck.
Yeah. Yeah.
And once I understood the formula and I took off that suit,
So if
that's
it's a
crazy.
takeaway, definitely no three-piece suit.
No, 30 suit.
Probably no suit, but just
Yeah,
keep the vest in the closet. If you hear one thing today. So you've been doing this stuff, since 2020. That's a pretty interesting time
yeah.
to be founding into, the pandemic and the social awakenings that have been happening. Like a lot of stuff has been out in the world. And then on top of that, as someone in ed tech thinking about what you're doing, thinking about the future of education with your background, this past year, it's really been the year of AI, and the year of AI in education. You were there ahead of the game, but then the game is certainly here. What's this year been like? What are your thoughts on how things have changed since generative AI has been out there?
Post-pandemic, my idea also was not accepted because people didn't understand the value of technology in education,
Mm,
right?
right,
Especially AI. They're thinking I'm stealing kids' minds or something.
right, right.
You have the pandemic, and then technology is like, oh, they're panicking. Everybody got caught. I mean, there were federal laws in 2009 that said that schools had to integrate technology, and no one did it. And so we
Right.
had a pandemic, right? So that put my product, except we were building it. I had to raise the money to build everything out and test it and those kind of things. Now, dealing with generative AI now, and we actually have another product that we have our own generative AI, and it takes any textbook. It's called Text Complexifier.
Mm,
It's any textbook. Let's say I'm a third grader. I want to read about astronauts. There are only fifth grade books in our library about astronauts. We
yeah,
could take any text and we can make it from first grade all the way to ninth grade.
that's cool.
We can change the text, but not the content. So
Hmm.
it takes the same content, and it's a readability level for
Yeah.
every.
I imagine it goes both up and down, right? It can
Yeah, that's what
complexify and it
yep,
can also
simplify.
decomplexify,
Yep, yep,
but
yep.
that's too many syllables.
We couldn't do that. So yeah, it's a pretty neat tool. So the problem is, like you said, people have put flashy labels. I'm using AI, I'm using AI, and they're not. They're usually using something that's a one-to-one relationship,
Mhm.
as opposed to really, using AI for what it can do and personalized learning. Let's say Chat GPT. I mean, if you think about it, this is actually the first time ever in history technology or a revolution has changed so fast,
Yeah.
right? The last one we're stuck in is the mobile, and
Right.
that's been going on for a long time, the
Yeah.
advance
Yeah, we're 15 years post smartphone and
right.
There hasn't really been a breakthrough at that level.
Yeah,
Yeah.
ChatGPT came out what, in last year?
Yeah,
And they're
Thanksgiving, yeah.
already in 4,
Yeah.
4 or 5? Like 4
Yeah.
is late.
Yeah.
It's never been that quick of a turn, and I
Yeah.
mean, it's a big difference between when they started and now.
Dr. Phil, they're rolling out versions of ChatGPT faster than Gillette's rolling out razors with extra blades.
And not cutting
It's
people.
exactly. It's wild, I imagine. And then also, what's great about you is you kind of bring a cross section of experiences within the educational universe.
Right.
You also talk about social emotional learning and the importance of resilience. What I like about that is you have an interesting blend of thinking about the emerging technology, the AI. But can you talk to our listeners a little more about how you think about resilience, how you think about social emotional learning? I have been doing this for years. I get social emotional, baby. Whitney's still gone too soon.
Yeah.
That's just a fact.
Oh, yeah.
But how do you weave that into the conversation? Because you're not just on the technology side.
Yeah, I'm also a psychologist, a
Mhm.
child psychologist, and my love, not only technology, but human learning and how the brain works, healthy development, and those kind of things. Listen, man, there are a lot of people that don't have those soft skills. There's a lot of kids that are hurting. There's a
Yeah.
lot of people that are under extreme environmental stressors, that we need to pay attention to. The issue is when you look at social emotional learning, or you look at what skills is necessary for someone to be successful in the future. I'm always thinking of
Yeah.
the futuristic. And even the new form of intelligence is changing. It's the ability to learn, unlearn, and relearn,
Yes.
because technology has a shelf life that is right now, it's a year shelf life, right? They have a new
Yeah.
phone version every 8 months to a year,
Right.
but it's getting quicker than that. And so the ability to pivot, the ability to adjust, to learn how to persevere.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, all those kind of skills are very important that we are not developing for children's future. And
Mhm.
the problem is that everybody understands when a child, or when a person, let's say a child, is lacking in math, what we do is we break it down. We tutor them, we direct teach the math skill that they're lacking. That's the same thing we're supposed to do with behavior. In math, if somebody is failing, we don't kick them out.
Right.
But in behavior, if you're failing, we kick you out.
Mhm.
Instead of direct teaching inconsistent skills, incompatible behavior with the behavior that you're exhibiting. And so it's a lot of times, school districts, we work on, and it's actually a law. It's called multi-tier systems of support. The same pyramid that goes for academics, you're supposed to do the same interventions for behavior, but people don't. It's
Yeah.
first thing you do is kick them out. Well, you kick them out, they come back with the same behaviors. They didn't learn anything, or
Right.
some learn worse, right?
Right. Right.
Then you put them back into their extreme environment where you took away for them coming to school, being in a safe environment, getting food, being around competent, adults, and
Yeah. Yeah.
like those kind of things. Yeah, it's rough. And so technology hasn't caught up in that space of really how to support. I mean, I
Mhm.
have a lot of great ideas, but I need to execute what I'm doing first. But we really haven't personalized social emotional learning, uh,
Right.
and that's going to be a problem. I mean, it's going to be a problem because, again, not only is technology so fast, their jobs are going to be that they're going to have to work alongside robots and robotics,
Right. Yeah.
right? And
Right.
AI, and AI doesn't have those emotions yet,
Right.
feelings, right?
Right.
And so, yeah, it's real different because I feel like we're just preparing kids for our past instead of their future,
Mm.
and it's gonna change so fast. They say in 2040, 85% of jobs that will exist haven't even been invented yet.
Right.
But it will have an aspect of technology, it will have reading fluency, and it
Mhm.
will have the ability for a person to be nimble, to be flexible.
There's a book, Algorithms to Live By, which basically breaks down a lot of the big algorithms that are out there. Explore versus exploit is one where, like, you're in a new environment. You're probably going to explore, but there's a point at which by the time you find something you like, then you're going to keep going back to that decision.
Yeah.
We're not really teaching kids good decision making practices, good heuristics, good mindsets. Another thing I know you were talking about was growth mindset.
Watch it.
And I've been thinking increasingly, also as a parent of a 4-year old, it makes me do this. But, in some ways, our job is to teach mindsets as much as skill sets.
Yeah.
And I'd love to hear you talk a little more about the mindset side of the equation and kind of thinking long term around what we're giving to our learners.
Well, one of the things that we take pride in, which I understand, is we say failure is not an option, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, no, fail forward. Like,
Right.
that's a good thing
Mhm.
because it's giving you this is not the solution that's working.
Right.
And to have that mindset to understand that no, failure is good. We have a growth mindset, always continuous improvement. Like
Right.
all those things that in the school, we actually do the opposite.
Mhm.
And on top of that, the successful person in the school right now is to memorize information and regurgitate facts.
Right.
And so your mindset is flat. And
Right.
and that little black box in your hand, and I used to say, in the future, this black box in your hand can have all the information you need,
Yeah.
and and your job is to look through it, read through it, and critically apply it. Well, how about that's now?
Right.
Like, my phone I can get any information, that I need
Right.
with ChatGPT and other things if with the right prompt. I mean,
Mhm.
it's at my fingertips, and
Right.
it's my job to read through what's correct and what's not correct, and how do
Mhm.
I critically apply it to my situation.
Right.
I mean, we're running away from even generative AI. I was in my MBA class. One of the students works in higher learning and said, well, you talk about this AI. What are they going to do with kids that are cheating?
Right.
Like, what did you do when a calculator was invented?
Right. Right.
This is a tool.
Right.
Tool is out there. I don't care what you talk about. That tool is
Yeah.
out.
Yeah. The way I think about it is everybody should be elevated to a higher baseline by
Yeah.
virtue of this stuff.
Yeah.
But then the other thing to think about is like if you're already good, you could be a lot better now.
Be great. Yeah.
And I think of it a little bit as almost like the steroids era of baseball, where like, these peds came in and suddenly people were hitting home runs more than we were expecting. It does feel like there are going to be some home runs in terms of
Yeah.
like augmented outputs that even I'm already seeing it in my own productivity when I use these models, use them flexibly, use them critically.
Yeah.
But when I find a problem, like depending on the space you're in, but I do a lot of content development, a lot of, new media production. It's a golden age as an individual if you want to just start riding some of these tools.
Yeah. But I mean, people are afraid because it's replacing jobs.
Mm,
And I even told my teachers when I was a superintendent, I said, technology, as of right now, technology will not replace you.
mhm.
Those who use it will replace those who don't.
Right.
This is the issue. Automation, people in their mindset right now are stuck on blue collar automation.
Yeah.
White collar automation is
Yeah.
here and fast.
Yes.
In the legal field, it's almost you just need one lawyer and to understand prompts. They have AI that can go through the briefs and
Right.
summarize everything you need.
Exactly.
Doctors, they have robotics and AI robotics that are doing surgery. Of
Right.
course, you need a doctor that, tell it what to do, but that precision is coming from robotics. They have AI that can predict with 99% accuracy a treatment for breast cancer. Breast cancer is one of the most deadly cancers there are. Now you can use technology that predicts it 99% accurate for you to live. And what you're gonna fight that? It's here. I
Yeah.
mean, if this is doing that, then think of the other things that it can predict health wise, it can predict with accuracy. A doctor is like 55 to 65% accurate
Mhm.
the first time. That's why it's practicing medicine.
Yeah.
They ask questions, you come back, you're more sick. No, they have technology that's 99% accurate the first
Yeah.
time you go.
It does make you think a lot about the future of work and how humans are going to be blending with the technology. But lots of times, the human facing side of these builds, it depends. Sometimes people want the anonymity. Interacting with a bot has its advantages, but there are certain types of work, certain types of engagement. And just the way that we're wired, we're going to want to connect with other humans and have sort of like social engagement, discourse. We're social animals.
I agree.
How do you see that part playing forward?
I didn't say that it will replace a doctor.
Yeah.
The number of doctors you don't need anymore.
Right.
Now you have to have a doctor, right? To get that final decision. Like you said, the need for touch, that aspect of it. I'm not saying that we will eliminate doctors. What I'm saying is it's going to replace jobs. I mean, it's going to repurpose jobs and it's going to limit the amount of, like I said, white collar and an attorney. You're still going to have an attorney, but you're not going to have all those team
Yeah.
of attorneys that do the research on one aspect and this
Right.
aspect, right? Let's look at, we can go up and down the blue collar, white collar. Let's look at truck drivers. Like, I think they're 65% of like income. I mean, I don't know, like the nation's income, like truck drivers are a big deal.
Yeah.
We're this close to automated cars, driverless cars.
We've been this close for a while, though. I'm just saying the implementation there has been, it's the old saw about you ask a futurist whether their prediction came true. The answers are either yes or not yet.
Right.
Like if it
But
hasn't
but would
happened, it's going to happen soon.
but would you say 10 years? Within 10 years?
Yeah, yeah. I'm just saying that's an interesting one where I'd say if you talked to me 5 years ago, I would have thought we'd be further by now. And then if you talked to me a year ago around chat automation and image generation and some of the things we've
Right.
seen around generative AI, I would have said that's probably 3 or 4 years away. So it is
Right.
interesting how, trying to understand how fast things move because it seems like things go through step changes where
Some,
you- you're
the
stuck and then suddenly there's a breakthrough and then things are significantly different on the other side.
yeah, but the issue is with something like that is you cannot experiment with life.
Right. The trolley problem is real when you're talking about self-driving cars.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So you have to creep through it, but we're getting there. And so even if, we have kids who say, I want to grow up to be a truck driver and all this kind of stuff, I don't think it's going to be there.
Right.
At the end, maybe to unload it. I don't know.
Right. Right.
Well, no, we know that robots can unload heavy equipment.
Well,
So
especially because they start building it for robots. Although it is interesting when you think about, like, I heard Tesla's now releasing like a humanoid robot, and
yeah,
like we're pretty good at the humanoid stuff. Like, I think in terms of like fine motor and like even in Amazon warehouses, like picking up like small items, it's going to take a while for them to catch up there. But if you build fresh where they can be designed however you want, that's going to be interesting. Like, I've seen I think it's the General Dynamics dancing robots. They kind of know what's going on. And I've also saw just recently, I saw these robots that learned how to play soccer, where they were dropped into like an arena with soccer ball and goals. And then just by virtue of like trial and error and reinforcing certain behavior patterns to get back to your point about behavior, it's pretty interesting to see how that technology advances. But then, you know, talking about behavior and then talking about our systems, how do you see us addressing some of that? Like you've navigated your career to get to a really interesting place now where you're looking to make an impact. How do we open up pathways for more folks like yourself? And how do we think about transforming education? Because it seems like the existing systems don't move fast enough.
yeah. I mean, there's a different paradigm shift that we need to have in education. And one is how do you prepare kids for a future that we know nothing about?
Right.
And so, but I promise you, there's like clear research. One is to teach the four C's. So critical thinking, creativity, um, communication,
Collaborate.
collaboration. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and I remember that. I remember back in the Apple days where that one smart person, they would, let that person go and that person would develop something. Nobody would talk to them. They would have cobwebs in their hair, it was just that one odd person. Now that person is fired if they don't know how to work with a group.
Yeah.
I can remember when, they was, building things like the iPad. It was just one group of people that were just working on the button, just
Yeah.
one button,
Yeah.
so you can
Yeah.
imagine how many different groups, and so if you don't know how to collaborate and communicate,
Right.
like creativity and all those kind of things, then we need to teach that because that's not what we're teaching in school. Again, memorization and regurgitation of facts. There is a robot, I think it's named Patty or something, but it basically flips hamburgers.
Okay.
And so with accuracy, and
Mhm.
the meaning I say this is because it only costs $30,000.
Right.
So you now have fast food restaurants that's buying Patty.
Yeah.
This person doesn't complain. They work,
Right.
they don't sleep,
Right. You
this
could
shit, and they're
rent
productive.
rent them out for barbecues. I mean, that's like a revenue stream.
Think of if you're McDonald's, I mean, you don't have workman's comp,
Yeah.
and all
Yeah.
that silly stuff that goes on. People stealing it. I mean, that is what I'm saying. But who programs those robots? Who
Right.
maintains those robots? So
Right.
it's repurposing. So we have to reskill America.
Yes. Yes.
We have to reskill America, or we're in trouble.
Right. I've heard that in the context of like diesel engineers, we should be teaching diesel engineers how to do electric, like try to be ahead on platforms and ahead on what's emerging so that, and then the reskilling needs to be part of a real lifetime commitment, that whole learn, unlearn, relearn that keeps happening. Those cycles never end. And that's a good thing because learning is intrinsically rewarding. You feel good when you learn things. So it builds some
We're creatures
positive
of habit. We're creatures
feedback.
of habits, though.
Yeah. Yeah.
We have learned to be creatures of habits, and that's the issue. We
Mm,
don't want change is hard for us.
yeah.
Once we get into a groove, we want to stay into that routine.
Yeah. Yeah.
That is not gonna be valued
Hmm.
in the future. And
Right.
really, I mean, just to be honest, it's gonna be the have and have not. That's what this kind of makes me sad. That middle class is gonna be gone, right? We have
Yeah.
the Asian white collar, blue collar automation. And so you're gonna have people who adjusted and were flexible. They're gonna be at the top. And
Yeah.
I'm exaggerating, but to me, it's like Gotham City. You're gonna have a large underground
Yeah.
community population
Mm,
that they're coming for you because
yeah.
they're hungry, they're
Yeah.
just looking at everybody else very successful and those kind of things. Yeah. It's scary. I mean, that's why I say it's a level of national security
Mm,
because we're not focusing on those things and other countries are really focusing on technology
yeah.
and all those kind of things within their citizens and our education systems.
I'm talking to Dr. Phil Hickman, who is the founder and CEO of Plabook. He's got some interesting ideas we're kicking around here today. What about advice for folks? You've done a pretty remarkable job navigating a really interesting career arc so far, and it sounds like you're actually on to even more interesting things looking ahead. Any advice, any recommendations for folks who are interested in a career in education, educational technology?
I would say one of the most important things I think is that a child or an adult or whoever is start to look into the technology field. There's boot camps out there. I started out with a boot camp in Kansas City called Launch Code KC. And that was my introduction to myself as opposed to managing teams and those kind of things that really digging into, what is technology, how to code, how to think in that aspect.
Yeah.
Entrepreneurial boot camps as well,
Yeah.
where the Small Business Association has free business coaches and those kind of things. I think understanding entrepreneurialism is very important.
Mhm.
Most communities, they put their smartest person to be an entrepreneur and their second tier kids to be doctors and lawyers. A
Yeah.
doctor and lawyer can only advance their family, their
Mhm.
family.
Mhm.
Entrepreneur can change generations.
Mm.
And so, and then the skills obviously that's important for the future are those tenets of entrepreneurialism, where you're critically thinking, you're solving a problem, you're persevering, you're understanding failure, and you just, you keep at it because it's an emotional roller coaster to be an entrepreneur. Because one minute you think you're high, I'm about
Mm.
to get this big grant or this, and, oh, it's
Yes.
not there. Then I got to
Yes.
or this, and I got to pivot it. Yeah, and so I would say, be ready for the long haul, but and put in the work. But there are good boot camps out there. There
Yeah.
are platforms out there that you can really learn from nowadays. We have access to information, video, I mean, every form that you can think of, and it's really not a lot of excuses not to grow mentally,
Yeah.
uh, area that you want to.
Yeah. And then what about doing your own thing versus working with some of the big name brands that are out there? Because it seems like you've been able to tap into both sides of that. Any perspective based on, seeing both sides of that equation?
Yeah. One baseline is you're making a lot of people rich when, you can put your ideas to work. And I think, the notion of do I have a unicorn, a $1 billion idea? But if you have, a lifestyle business, a $300,000 a year idea, that's
Yeah.
that's pretty good.
Right.
Yeah, as opposed to working for someone else
Hmm.
and the stress and non-flexibility and all those things that come along with that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I felt that like there were some things I didn't know. I worked hard and I watched
Yeah.
those ideas grow
Yeah.
that I was not attached to it anymore. I didn't get paid,
Right.
for
Right.
I just got my normal salary. And
Right.
yeah, some of those things are just and if you're good at what you do in your area, trust me, there's a need for you.
Yeah.
There's to monetize that.
Yeah, it is interesting also to think about the combination of the gig economy and being entrepreneurial.
Mhm.
That pathway, like it or not, seems to be a growing one. And it's also one as you get older. I'm thinking about that too, where like, do I really retire if I can still bill for work, based on the way things are going? If I enjoy what I'm doing, I'm going to keep billable hours are billable hours. It doesn't matter how old you are. It's an interesting time. Dr. Phil, as we're getting closer to concluding here, I always like to ask guests outside of education, where do you get your inspiration? What's out there gets you excited nowadays. You're someone who's pretty plugged into what's new and emerging. Any thoughts, anything for our listeners?
I eat up any kind of content, and it's so available in the way that I want, even down to Instagram. I mean, there's some inspirational
Yeah.
folks on Instagram,
Mhm,
that I
mhm.
follow in that sense. And so, yeah, I mean, you can, there's just so much information that you can get from reading tidbits to seeing videos to hearing audiobooks. I mean, I'm always in a mood to learn something. So it's not just one person or one platform. Whoever has some great content and that catches my eye, and
Yeah.
I start getting into it. There are some great podcasts, just like yours.
Yeah,
There are
yeah.
some great podcasts that if you listen to people discussing their ideas, I mean, it should spark something in you. It
Right.
should. It should spark something in you. And the thing is, you just need to act on it.
Be omnivorous. I've heard someone say, sample from different varieties, varietals of learning information that's out there. Like what's a different context? What's a different way for me to consume something maybe I haven't seen before? It keeps you sharp and helps us all leverage that range of experience we were talking about. All right, Dr. Phil, this is our closing moment. We want to conclude here with some takeaways for our listeners. As folks head back to the rest of their lives, any parting thoughts, parting words from you?
Yeah. One, of course, I have to talk about my product. If your child's school system doesn't have Playbook as a reading technology, and we're still looking at, kids reading paragraph and choosing multiple choice questions, that's a shame, right? We're not assessing what we're saying we're assessing. Two, social emotional development is so important to be able to have your child, to not punish your child for experimenting, for exploring, promote those because those are skills, that's going to be successful in the future. I remember getting in trouble for taking apart my dad's lawnmower, you know, but a person that tinkers with technology, I mean, that's where it's at. Those are some of the lasting things I would say, look at local boot camps. They have them for free. Some of them are
Yeah.
nonprofits that have local boot camps and local entrepreneurial environments. There are a lot of meetups out there where we meet at coffee shops and just kind of discuss technology and AI. And I would say do not run from AI. It's really not a true AI yet. They call it a soft AI because it doesn't act on its own, but use it as a tool. Don't run from it. Use it as a tool. Understand that, you can look like an expert now because you're equipped with information and it's given to you in a digestible form that you can apply it.
Fantastic stuff with Dr. Phil Hickman, also known as Dr. Phil. Thanks so much for joining me on today's episode.
No worries. Thank you. I appreciate it.
And for our listeners, hopefully you enjoyed what you heard. If you did, please subscribe, write us a review, tell your friends, do all the good things. We'll be back again soon. This is Trending in Education.